Hello to you. I do hope you're well. Welcome to this week's video. I'm Wardle, and this video is all about championing every student in your classroom. And this is something that I try to do in my teaching career, and it is something that I'm really passionate about. I think that it goes to the very heart of what teaching is actually all about, and that is championing and challenging your students to fulfill their full potential and become the very best that they can be. So in this video, I thought I could have a chat about what championing every student is actually all about, what does that mean, and then how to actually go about doing it. And so there are two things really to talk about. The first is how we do this at a whole class and a whole cohort level. And I think that the important thing there is that you create a culture of excellence and aspiration within your classroom. And then secondly, how we go about doing this at an individualized level. So how to go about building those positive relationships with your individual students so that you can support them, you can champion them, and you can challenge them as individuals to be the very best that they can be. So this idea of championing every student in your classroom, where does it actually come from? Well, I'm sure you actually already know, because this idea comes from a very famous TED Talk that was given by Rita Pearson. And I actually keep a quote from this TED Talk in my diary with me, because I think it really encapsulates, as I say, what teaching is all about and why a career in teaching is such a privilege and a pleasure. So let me read this quote to you. Rita Pearson said that every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. I mean, what an amazing quote. And I think it really does encapsulate the heart of teaching, that we're not just here to impart knowledge, but we're actually here to help young people, the young people in our care, to become the very best versions of themselves. So it is our job, it is our duty to champion them, to challenge them, and to support them in their academic journey, but also in their development as young people, so that by the time they leave us and they go out into the world, they can go on, to live happy, successful, and fulfilling lives, and that they will then themselves be able to go on and make a positive difference in the world. And for me, I think I feel so passionately about this because I wouldn't be where I am today without the support of my teachers. And actually, it's not just my teachers. Not to go off on a tangent here, but when I was in year 8 myself, I was hospitalised with the eating disorder anorexia. And it is only because of the mental health professionals, the doctors and nurses at the hospital, of my teachers, but then also the pastoral staff in my school, and then also my parents and grandparents, that I am alive today and that I am where I am today. They quite literally saved my life. And if they hadn't gone above and beyond, as they all did, to help me and to quite literally save me, then I would not have survived that. So I think I feel so passionate about this because I am only where I am today because teachers, doctors, mental health professionals, and my family championed me, if I can put it like that. And they invested their time in me. They gave me so much care. And so I have seen, as I say, firsthand, the value and the importance of championing every student in your classroom. And I actually do keep in my diary with me a card that our deputy head teacher from school wrote on my, I don't think it was actually on my last day, but it was when I left the school. And I keep that with me because it's such a positive reminder of the impact she had in my life and the impact I am then inspired to have in, hopefully, young people's lives as a teacher, because that is what teaching is all about. It's about making that difference. So before I continue rambling on, let's actually get on with today's topic, shall we? Which is championing every student in your classroom. And as I say, there are two parts to this. The first one is at that classroom and cohort level, and then the second one is at that individualised level where you are supporting and showing up for your students. And I think the things we'll be talking about today apply whether you are a classroom teacher, you might be a form tutor, whoever you are, whatever role you are doing. I think this applies because everybody can be a champion for their students. So let's get started with that classroom cohort level. And this is all about creating a culture of excellence and aspiration in your classroom. I think teachers obviously have to be experts on their subject. They need to be experts on pedagogy, but I also think you need to be an expert in motivation. And fortunately for me, I do see myself as a bit of a life coach. That was at one point one of my career aspirations. And so I love to be Mr. Motivator in my classroom. And my students know that when they come into my classroom, when they come into room 10, whether they are in year 7 or year 13, they are going to get motivation, and that I am going to be reminding them that we are here to achieve greatness, to be the best in Britain, and achieve, as I say, really amazing things. So the first step in terms of championing every student in your classroom is to create that culture of, I call it greatness, you could call it excellence, in your classroom. You need to be really clear and explicit with your students every time they step through into your classroom, so they come in through the door, that this is a place, that your classroom is a place where amazing things happen. I always say to my students, we are here to be the best in Britain. In this classroom, in this room, in room 10, amazing things happen and great things are achieved. I always say to my students, and it is so important to be really explicit with your students about your aspirations for them. I always say to them, I want you to get the top results. I want us to get those grade 9s. We're here to get those A stars so that we can go on to the top universities, that you can go on to the top careers. I want you to be achieving the best in the country. And I always say that, in this classroom, we are striving to be the best. We are the top 1% in Britain. I like to remind them that there are 800,000 students in their year group across the country, and that in this classroom, we are here to be the best. And that's really important as well for your behaviour management, because I always say you've got to link your high expectations of students to your high aspirations for them. Always be really explicit, not only about what you expect students to do, but why you expect them to do those things. I saw an Instagram post actually the other day that was talking about behaviour management and saying, don't just give students a list of don'ts, always be really clear with them about what you want them to do. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. For me, the key to effective behaviour management is that you create that culture of greatness in your classroom, that you are being really clear that you have such high expectations of your students, and you need to be really clear about what those expectations are, because you have high aspirations for them. And so whatever you're asking students to do, be really explicit about the reason why. I always say, I want you to be sat up straight facing the front so that you are fully engaged, that you look professional, and that you are ready for when you're sat in that lecture theatre at Oxford and you're paying attention to what the lecturer is saying. I want you to be taking notes on this, and I will then obviously model how they should be taking those notes, because when you are in that lecture theatre at Cambridge, you will need to be taking your highly effective notes on what the professor is saying. So every single instruction that you give should always, in my opinion, come with that explanation of why, that I have these high expectations of you because I have these high aspirations for you. And I talk to my students about greatness being a choice. This is my mantra, and this is also my acronym. And, obviously I do go on about this a lot, but actually repetition and reinforcement really is key in order to get that buy-in from your students. So my students all know, because I give them a postcard with this on and I talk about this all the time, that I believe greatness is a choice and that I expect them to choose greatness so that they can achieve great things. So the acronym is that G means give it 100%, R means respect everybody, E means engage positively, A means to arrive on time, and T means to take responsibility. And I actually have the Greatness Code of Conduct for them to read as well, in which I literally set out students who choose greatness know that. And then we go through things such as everybody is capable of achieving great things and that excellence is never an accident. I then explain in the code of conduct, excuse me, that consistently choosing greatness means you will, and then outlining the benefits of it, the reasons that we choose greatness. And then obviously over the next 5 pages, it then actually sums up and spells out what it means to give it 100%. So then we have really clear, succinct bullet points that outline what giving it 100% is all about, so that students know I have these high expectations of them because I have these high aspirations for them. And actually, I've been getting quite carried away on Canva over the last few days. This is what happens when I'm on holiday. And I've actually put together a little journey to greatness graphic here, even with a little road. Look, there's the road to greatness. I hope we all appreciate that attention to detail. And it sets out that in order to go on to achieve greatness, which is what I want for all of my students, you've got to give it 100%, respect everybody, engage positively, arrive on time, and take responsibility. And, you know, for me, you have to then first of all, believe it yourself, and then you've got to be relentless in reminding students of it as well. So, you know, I do, as I say, see myself as Mr. Motivator in room 10, fueled by green tea, of course. I do have mine here today. And I always remind myself, you know, a big part of my job, one of my favourite things actually about my job, is that you are here to, you know, motivate and inspire and empower your students. I want them to have that self-belief. I want them to have that aspiration, and I want them to have that determination that with hard work, they can achieve great things. I mean, actually, I will just read to you a couple of the bullet points that I do share with students. This is actually going to become a bookmark. Obviously not this size. This is the PDF proof, but this is going to be printed on a bookmark. So on one side, although I don't have it to show you, I'm afraid, is going to be the 5, what are they called? The 5 steps of greatness, the acronym. That's the word I'm looking for, GREAT, with, you know, which each one means, or what each one means. Sorry, I really can't talk today. So on one side, it's going to have the acronym of greatness. But then on the other side, I've put down 10 of the bullet points that I regularly use, you know, the little phrases and mantras that I use during lessons. So it says, students who choose greatness know that everybody is capable of achieving great things. It is important to aim high, work hard, and be kind. Success is the result of effort, resilience, and determination. And one of my favourites, actually, it is important to be a leader and role model for others. This is an important part for me of championing every student in your classroom, that you believe that they can be a leader and a role model, that you don't just expect them to, you know, complete the tasks, to not be rude or whatever. You know, you actually have such high aspirations for them. You see them as a leader, and every single student that I teach knows I expect them to be a leader, and I expect them to then be a role model for others. And I think that is a great incentive for students to actually then really work hard to unlock and fulfill their full potential, because they think, yes, I can be a leader, I do want to be a role model. And that is really powerful for motivating them. So that's how I create that classroom culture. I use the language of greatness, and I strive to create that culture of excellence. And we really have to maximise that buy-in by saying to students, we are the best in Britain. In this classroom, we choose greatness and we achieve great things. That is the reason we're here, and that not only helps students to feel championed by you, because they really do feel that you believe in them and that you are passionate about them succeeding, but it's then also very beneficial for your behaviour management and your classroom management as well. Because remember, you're then always going to be linking your high expectations of students to your high aspirations for them. And the thing I would just say there is always be explicit, always be as explicit explicit and as clear as you can about what you expect students to be doing and why you expect them to be doing that. I think they call it double planning. Is that a TLAC technique that I actually think is really helpful? At every stage of your lesson plan, you've got to think, what will I be doing as the teacher, but also what do I expect my students to be doing? Even if that is literally just sitting up straight, facing the front and listening, make sure you consciously plan what you expect your students to be doing so that when they are in your classroom, they are immersed in that culture of excellence, they are immersed in that culture of greatness, and so they can achieve really great things. So that is how I do it at that classroom and that cohort level. It is about having those high standards linked with those high aspirations and instilling in students that they can achieve great things and that they will achieve great things. That your job is to help them become the best that they can be and achieve really great things, not only just in education, but also in life as well. So that's how I do it at the whole class level. There is then obviously, actually, no, please, let me just pause there and just actually share with you. I wanted to share with you a couple of extracts from this brilliant book about doing this at that classroom level. So it's a brilliant book called What Great Teachers Do Differently. It is written by Todd Whitaker. And there is a little extract here that I wanted to read. This is it. So at that whole classroom level, he writes, great teachers know that they are the variable in the classroom. Good teachers consistently strive to improve and they focus on something they can control, their own performance. And I think that is really important. An important part of championing your students is showing up and being your best and making sure that you are delivering the very best lessons that you can. I think that is such an important way of championing your students. When they can see that you care, they can, see that you are invested in their education, that shows them that you are championing them. There's actually another chapter here that is important for this as well. It's called Focusing on Students First. And in this chapter, he says, great teachers focus on students first with a broad vision that keeps everything in perspective. And again, I think that's really important for championing every student in your classroom, that you put your students first and that is your priority, so that you are thinking, right, how can I make sure I deliver the best teaching possible for them so they get the best experience in education in my classroom. And then the final one, and I think this is a really important one that I wanted to share with you, is he writes, great teachers create a positive atmosphere in their classrooms and schools. They treat every person with respect. And of course, that is the R of greatness, to respect everybody. And in particular, they understand the power of praise. And this is such an important part of championing every student. It is about understanding and then effectively harnessing the power of praise. I really, really believe this so passionately, that you should be as lavish in your praise as possible. Now, it's obviously important to be really specific when you're giving praise and to make sure that you are praising the right things. But I always think that praise is our most powerful tool as teachers, whether that is verbal. And I love, to be really clear with the praise that I'm giving, well done, that was an outstanding answer. And then going into detail about why, because you have said this, this and this. That shows me you are a grade 9 candidate. That shows me you are on track for greatness, so always being really clear with your praise. And, that really boosts the student being praised, but it then also brings everybody else up as well, because then they want to be on the receiving end of that praise. It highlights to them what excellence looks like and what they should be doing. So again, it links back to that idea of being a leader and a role model in the classroom. But then also, I think it's important to send praise postcards or write praise postcards, I could say. I don't mean you then have to go to the post box and spend £500 posting them out to everybody's homes. But what I love to do is write a praise postcard. So I have loads of these greatness postcards. I've just got some new ones printed actually, because I wanted to, have a little revamp for the new academic year. But I really believe in the power of praise postcards, and just sending them home with students. I get some envelopes from Tesco, about 2p each. The cards themselves, obviously I have loads of these spare, and I just like to write a few words, congratulations on, and then sharing with students how impressed you are at the work that they've done. And I think that, again, is such a powerful way of championing your students, that they can see that you do notice their successes and that you are congratulating them for them. So yeah, that's a really powerful tool as well. However, before again I go off on a tangent and ramble on for hours, I want to talk about the second key focus when it comes to championing every student in your classroom. And this is all about supporting and showing up for individual students, because it's so important to do that work, creating the culture and setting those high expectations and those high aspirations for everybody. But at the end of the day, your classroom is filled up with individuals. So you need to make that effort to build those relationships with those individual students, and then make that effort to champion, challenge, see and support them on that individual level. And I always say you've got to know more than their names. It is so important to invest that time in actually getting to know your students as individual students. So you should, spend time talking to them about what are your aspirations, what are your interests, what is your favourite subject, and really make that effort to remind students that if you can support them, if there is anything I can help you with, the door is always open. Have a chat, let me know. We are here to help you because we want you to be your best and achieve great things. So it's really important that you are having those conversations, as I know that you will be if you're a teacher, with students. There are quite a few opportunities to do this. Obviously, we are quite stretched for time, aren't we, in teaching? But I always think the fresh holding is a great chance when students are arriving, do the meet and greet at the door. There's also a great opportunity when you're on break duty, you're on lunch duty, you're on after school duty, and you see your students, have a chat with them, talk to them. What have you had for lunch? How's your day going? That kind of thing, just seize that opportunity to have a quick chat with students. And as I say, talk to them about their aspirations as well. I think that is really important for me, because that then helps you to not only champion them, which is of course what today's video is all about, but also to then motivate them, because you can say, well, I want to help you get there. This is how we're going to get there. So if you know what your students are hoping to achieve, you can then champion them, you can then support them much more effectively. So invest that time in getting to know your students and what their personal aspirations are, and that will really pay off for you. And I think for me, actually, I've got another little prop for you. Do excuse me. This card that I received from one of my students sums it up. And this student wrote for me, "Dear Mr. Wardle, thank you for always being there for me and always listening. I'm really grateful for having you as our head of year. I hope you're doing well," she added. Now, I keep that card with me because, again, that's a reminder for me that championing your students is about showing up for your students. So, what do I actually mean by that? What I mean is that students know you are there for them, you are there with them to celebrate their successes and to support them when they do face difficulties. And that's important, I think, as a classroom teacher, but then in particular as a form tutor, of course, and then especially as a head of year as well. It is about students knowing that you are there to champion them and to challenge them, and that is all about showing up for them. And again, I want to talk about my deputy head teacher, who very kindly wrote these words in this card for me. I can remember so many occasions when she was there to support. And I would always think, wow, she's so busy, she's so high up in this school, and yet she's making the time to show up. So, for example, I went to do a public speaking competition in Manchester, I think it was, the venue. So it was the Northwest Regional Finals, and it was a Sunday. And as I say, it was in Manchester, so it's about a 30-minute drive. And I can remember getting there, walking in, to obviously go and do the competition with my friend, with my family. And I remember then seeing that sat there with a couple of the other staff was this deputy head teacher. And I just thought, wow, you are, as I say, so important. You are so busy. You've given up time at your weekend to come and support me doing this. And then I can also remember helping out with a summer school at the school in, I think it must have been, well, it would have been August, July or August. And I can remember going into the lunch hall, into the canteen, and seeing her there again, helping out with the serving of food, helping with the primary school students who had come in for that summer school. And again, I thought, you know, you are so important, you're so high up, so busy, and you're giving up your time to be here to, you know, just help out and chip in any way that you can. And that, for me, again, was a massive source of inspiration. So that, you know, you are always showing up for your students, that you are there providing that consistent support. I think that's, you know, quite reassuring, and it reminds students that you are there to champion them. And so that inspires me. I'm there on sports day, for example. I'm at the finish line cheering them on, you know, for an example there. I am checking in with students. I'm making sure, you know, how are you? How is your day going? Whenever I see my students in the corridor, we're having a chat, whether that is 5 seconds, 5 minutes, making sure you make that time for those conversations, that you are following up as well on something that students might have mentioned. So if they've said that at the weekend they're going to a wedding or they're playing in a football game, making sure that when you see them the next week, you follow up on that and you say, well, how was it? How did it go? You're actually following up. And, you know, also importantly, having those pep talks. It's important to have that whole class motivation, of course, set those high expectations to the whole class, but then on that one-to-one level, reminding students, you know, keep working hard, keep being your best, reminding them they have so much potential, they need to believe in themselves, and that you are here to support them. Be really clear with students that anything you can do to help, just let me know. Come to the office. Let me know if there's anything we can do to help you. I always say to students as well, I can't necessarily solve all of the problems that might be going on, all of the issues that you're having, but what I can do and what we will do, is be here to support you in any way that we can. And so I think if I go back to what the card says and why it means so much to me, thank you for always being there for me and always listening. As I say, I can't always give the solutions. Most of the time I can't give the solutions. What I can do is listen, and I can be there to support. And I think that's really important when it comes to championing every student. I think it's particularly important as well with those students who are quieter and who can often blend into the background. And I say that in a way to really incentivize you to scan your classroom and to think, who is in my classroom, who maybe hasn't said as much in my lessons? Let me go and find them and have a chat with them, because it's easy, I think, to obviously focus all of our attention on those students who make that effort to get our attention. But it's just as important to actually go and check in with those students who are a bit quieter, so that they do feel seen and they do feel supported. And that is just as simple as literally having a 1-minute conversation. How are you? How's your day going? What are your aspirations? What are you enjoying at the moment? Anything I can help you with? What are you up to at the weekend? It's just about making that time, and it literally is 1 minute, so that students feel seen. And I really don't think we can underestimate the power of that in terms of how it then shows our students that we are here to champion them, we are here to support them, and we are here to help them become their best. So it's just about making that effort to check in for 1 minute with a student who's maybe not ever said anything in your classroom. Just say, how are you? How's your day going? Show them that you know their name. Show them that you care. Show them that you are interested in them as an individual student, and that you do want to hear from them. It's so simple, but I think it is so powerful as well, because that can often, I think, then open a door where if they are then struggling with something, they feel like they can come and speak to you, because you've had that conversation, you've spent 1 minute, a whole 1 minute, just reaching out to that student and asking them how they are. So that then plants a seed that you are somebody who will be able to support should they need any support. So don't underestimate, I would always say to myself and to anybody that asks for my advice on this, don't underestimate the power of literally 30 seconds to 1 minute having a very quick chat with a student. It's that simple, and you should strive to do that, I would say, with as many of your students as possible, when you're on the corridor, when you're on lunch duty, when you're meeting and greeting at the door. So I do feel the end of this video has been a bit all over the place, but I think really the core message here in terms of championing students on that individual level is that it's about investing in your students. It's about seeing them, it's about supporting them, and it's about showing up for them so that they feel supported, believe it or not, and that they can actually see that support in a tangible way, whether that is a quick conversation, whether that is a praise postcard, whether that is you being there to watch their football match at lunchtime, for example. Another way to do this is with phone calls home and messages home. I think that's another really great way actually to champion students when they see that you actually make that effort to let their families and their carers know about their successes. Because I think very often, I certainly made this mistake, well, not mistake, but I certainly did this in my first year of teaching. The only time I was really talking to parents was if it was for a behaviour issue, for example. So it was that, you know, a student had been given a detention. That was the only time I was picking up the phone. Whereas this year, certainly in the most recent half term, I have spent all of my time having praise phone calls with parents, getting students to come into the office and to sit there whilst I actually tell their parents that they are outstanding, they are one of the best students in the year group, and that they are destined for great things, that they, you know, are an exemplary role model for others, which I have done. And, you know, I only do that if it's genuinely the case. And so I've really enjoyed doing that as well. It's such a positive way to champion students and to acknowledge their really great work, to make those phone calls, and also to do a quick message as well. I think that's a really effective way. If you send that message on Edulink, for example, as we use. So yeah, that's what it's all about for me. It's about championing your students. It's about creating that culture of excellence, creating that culture of aspiration, really instilling that belief that they are capable of great things, and that in your classroom, great things are achieved, that we are the best in Britain, and that we are the top 1% of learners. And then on that individualized level, it's about building those relationships. It's about investing your time in your students, having those conversations, sending those praise postcards, making those phone calls home, and having those little pep talks. And that for me is how I endeavour to champion every student and to make sure that students feel seen, supported, that they are championed and they are challenged to be their best and to achieve really great things. And I think we do have, you know, a lot of students who do struggle at the moment, especially with mental health, for example, and well-being. So it's important that we are just, as I say, not trying to see ourselves as counsellors and psychotherapists, which we're not, are we? We're teachers, but we just, and I want to quote this card again, being there and listening so that students feel seen, they feel supported, and they feel that you believe in them and you believe in their potential. So I'm going to stop rambling now. I hope some of that has been insightful and interesting. I'm going to watch this back now, although I hate listening to my own voice. I'm going to watch this back now and think, what on earth were you going on about? You could have said all that in 2 minutes, but here we are, 2,000 hours later. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.